Well, great to have Nic Shabro here, my good friend.
Good to see you.
That's
Be here.
first time is here in the studio.
First time in the studio. Yeah, you guys did a fantastic job with it.
Appreciate it, and you helped us with our move. I know we're gonna be talking about CC staffing, but with preferred moving and storage, you guys crushed it with helping us move offices and anywhere from the furniture to even the putting green we had to get installed over there. So thank you to you guys at Preferred Moving and Storage for the help with that office move. It was much needed and great.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of fun with it. I know the crew enjoyed it. What maybe is a good segue is we like solving problems, and that putting green was an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you come into the day, I think no matter what you do, if you have the opportunity to solve something new, that's what keeps
That's what it's about. Yeah. And it's funny too, because like, you know, we talk all the time as just business owners and leadership stuff and what you learn over the years. There's some stuff you just can't learn in a textbook.
Yeah.
There's some stuff you just can't learn in the classroom. And
Well, are you supposed to say that on the campus, boss?
yeah, right. And there's a lot of good stuff you can learn, but it's fascinating to me because some of the biggest things I've learned over the course of my career have been truly the on the fly, figure it out type things where someone described entrepreneurship one time as you're thrown into the deep end of the pool and you can't swim and you just figure it out.
Yeah.
And those learning experiences where you just have to figure stuff out. You might not have ever even prepared for something before, but problem solving and just figuring stuff out, I think is just huge for growth and just learning how to operate.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting being in the staffing space because we get a peek under the hood of so many of these other businesses.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And one of the challenges to keep your analogy running is you've got to get thrown in the pool, not know how to swim, and turn into Michael Phelps for your client.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so we get new recs, we call them, right, when we have a new opening that we need to fill. And it's impossible for somebody to be an expert in every position you ever recruit.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to dive in and learn that position from the candidate standpoint, from the company standpoint, and then merge. What's important to us is merge the culture.
Yeah.
Right. How do we then take the hard skills and fit them with the fit?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot of fun, you know.
We'll talk. I was going to say too, if you could, Nic, obviously talk about CC Staffing and how that company started. Give us the quick backstory on it.
Sure. So we'll keep with the being on Walsh campus. I started in higher education and career services, matching companies with interns, developing internship programs, went into staffing from that route, started hiring. I worked in an agency, I worked in corporate, and at a point, started doing some side work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Started filling positions for people in my network, one-offs, that sort of thing.
Pretty organically,
very organically. There was an abrupt point where I lost my job unexpectedly, 2 kids under 2, new house,
That's
the whole
pressure.
deal,
Yeah.
right? Called everybody I knew, told them, you know, hey, here's what we're doing. We want to help businesses. And you know what I thought, looking back, not in a toot my own horn sort of way, but
Mm-hmm.
what really did it, what I think was smart, is I looked at the landscape and I said, there's staffing agencies and recruiting companies who are for the elite,
Yeah.
right? For these large conglomerate,
Yep.
publicly traded Fortune companies. But in my backyard, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
In Southeast Michigan,
You found a need,
yeah,
a hole
you're
in the
a tier 2
marketplace.
supplier,
Yeah.
tier 3, you're a franchise business. You know, so I attacked that in a unique way, offering flat fees, because I think sometimes, you know, again, here in our home market, a handshake, people want simplicity and to understand it.
Midwest values as well.
Midwest
You know?
values.
Well, and let's stay with that because obviously, you know, you just mentioned the handshakes, the organic, the Midwest values. When you think about CC staffing, how do you describe if there is a North Star, if there is a mission statement, not to be too cliche, but how do you describe in your own words your company values?
So, I always say it's a little bit nerdy, and cliche to your point, but our we call them pillars.
Mhm.
Our core values, I mean, we live and breathe them. They're plastered everywhere. The acronym is huge.
Okay, cool.
Humility, urgency, grit, and execution.
Nice.
And humility is first for a reason, right? I think you have to be able to come into somewhere and say, hey, I don't know
Yeah.
everything,
Yep.
but I have experience that is relevant, and I can bring that to the table and help get this thing in the right direction.
That's great. And grit, a little bit of Dan Campbell and Lions in there
Well,
too. Now, you were before Dan
I want to
Campbell.
say this very clearly to everybody that we had the grit there before Campbell entered the scene.
Dan Campbell and the Lions should be paying you royalties for grit.
If there's a letter shows up at his door, I don't know what to say.
Or they should just the Lions should hire CC staffing if they have some, some needs for help with the NFL draft or help with front office staff or whatever.
I would tell you that, we are probably the best in the business at identifying grit, as the first ones in the door on grit in Detroit.
It's funny. I played Brock Wright, who plays for the Lions, tight end. He's a friend of mine, and I've played golf with him, and I'll joke with him about grit. I'll say, "What does grit mean?" And he'll recite grit like right away because it's in the locker room and whatnot. But I love the fact that you guys have written, published values that acronym wise like that you just drive in to your team. And I think that there's from a staff perspective, curious your opinion on this because of your industry. I think it is important to select a few things like that, a few core pillars, and drive it home with your team, because you can't just try and drive home 37 different words to people. So I think just really boiling it down and picking those core words, and then obviously some subsets and some lessons underneath those core words is huge.
Well, we lean on the phrase, do the next right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there are times when there will be a debate. How do we handle this situation? In our industry, our product has free will.
Yeah.
So there's always something interesting going on, and a conversation about how do we navigate that? How do we consult our customers? And it really boils down, well, do the next right thing. What's the right thing?
Yep.
So when you keep it simple like that, it helps. But what we see with a lot of our customers is they're going through hiring processes by gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so to your point, we take a consultative approach, right? We're not going to throw candidates at the wall, hope something sticks. It's transactional, move on, see ya.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand what have been the hurdle. Why did you need to hire us? What have been the hurdles to attracting and retaining talent?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes part of that is just formalizing what you are after on the soft skills side.
Yep.
Right. So what are you all about?
Right.
What's important to you guys? Yeah, I know that if you're hiring a computer programmer, there's a list of hard skills.
Sure.
I get that.
Sure.
But the gut of fit is not a hiring.
We talk about all the time, not an acronym per se, but there's some alliteration to it, I guess. Communication and care.
Yeah.
We focus on that a ton at Make the Turn, because what I always say is, look, of course, we want to be experts in the spaces we work in. We want to be able to speak in the weeds, obviously, on content creation, on digital ad campaigns and keyword research, and getting in the weeds on all sorts of build outs with that. And we always will. But forget about if we just boil it down, forget about everything else. Forget about all the in the weeds. If our team has great communication and great care for our partners, I truly believe and know that the rest will take care of itself.
Right.
Because every partner that we have, they want good communication, and they want to know that they're cared about. And if we do that in a genuine way, guess what? We're gonna, of course, do the other stuff well with the in the weeds, with the technicals, with the campaign build outs, all of that. And to take it one step further, I know that if we have good communication and good care, if there is an inevitable hiccup, an inevitable error, mistake that we're all human beings and make, we have such a long leash to fix it because our partners know without a shadow of a doubt that we communicate and we care. And hey, totally, thank you for, we're going to get the opportunity to fix anything that might go wrong because of those North Star principles.
Well, your intention is important. Our VP, Jay Held, who talks a lot about having a customer service heart.
Yeah.
And attacking every day with a customer service heart. And, there's a piece of our business where we do high volume, light industrial, contract to hire. Some people call it temp to hire. And in our industry, there's some really good competitors out there, but there is a stigma because historically those candidates have been treated not like candidates, like numbers, like a means to an end, where, from the very beginning, and to go back to one of your earlier questions, one of the things that I said before I had a single employee on payroll was I'm never going to do business with somebody who doesn't have the intention of giving people an opportunity at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if it's just temps, it's not my thing. But if it's contract to hire, okay, so they come in, they work hard and do everything they're supposed to do. At the end of the day, there's a real opportunity for a real position for promotion and benefits and raises and growth. Then that's what we're about.
Yeah.
And if a candidate doesn't fit that, okay, great. Can we leave them better than when they came here?
Yep.
Is there a resume tip we can give them anecdotally? Is there a direction to point them in?
I love that word intent. I think about it all the time because I think that's it's so important to identify intent, in my opinion, before anything else.
Yep.
If someone is well-intended, truly, and makes the wrong decision, I'll never fault someone for it. I'll help correct it. I'll be happy to help correct it.
Yep.
So if your intent is to, even like, let's say someone is you hear something you might view as insulting or kind of, hey, what was their intent? Was their intent to tell me that my shirt's untucked to make me feel like a slob? No, okay. Even though I feel like that, no, their intent was to tell me, hey, your shirt's untucked. I know you want it. Okay, so why am I mad at them? Like their intent is good, and that's such a random example.
Well, but it's funny because like I'm a family guy, right? I have 3 kids, wife. I'm constantly referee, but it's funny how much business principle plays in real life. And I'm constantly telling my kids, okay, what was your brother's intention? Right, to break your skateboard? No, it wasn't.
Right, exactly. And I think that real life aspect, I think about the service businesses and the restaurant business a lot, actually, and hospitality. I mentioned communication and care just now. The example I give is if you go to a restaurant and you have fantastic food, the food is fantastic from a taste great perspective, but the server's nowhere to be found. You can't wave them over. They're maybe a little bit rude. They're focused on other things. Your experience, even though the food is great, your experience at that restaurant is going to be lowered a little bit, even if it's only 10%. But, other side of the things, if you go to a restaurant and your food is, let's say from a taste perspective, your food is okay, it's average, but the server is on top of it. They're engaged. They're talking to you. They're how are you? How is everything? On top of things, timely. The service and the communication and the care is great. Literally, your average food, your experience is going to be elevated because the communication, the service, the care is great. So like that's where it's so important in the grand scheme of things.
Well, that's the execution, right? So you can have all the greatest intentions, but at a point you have to execute,
Right.
And you have to come through and you have to provide value, real value for your clients.
Yep.
And so, I can think of several instances where we've been partners with a company for an extended period of time, and we're helping them fill positions, but you get to know them and you get to know their DNA. And if you're doing your job the right way, you're constantly taking feedback. And at a point, we've had to come to some customers and say, hey, we figured out what the issue is. You have a leader in this role who is having a negative trickle down for these reasons.
Yep.
And it's never our intention to get somebody fired. That's not the point. But when you're looking holistically at an organization and you identify key points, then that becomes our duty to say, hey, let's get to the root cause of some of this. Good for us to continue to fill positions and that sort of thing. Sure, that'd be an easy way to go about that. and we have put ourselves out of business in some accounts for that reason, where we say, okay, we've gotten far enough down the road. You guys are, fly
Yeah.
and but that's what's fun.
Yeah.
That's
No, I love it. And I guess, in kind of starting to wrap up here, um, I'm curious, Nick, your opinion on the staffing industry. Let's talk about it in general right now. You mentioned earlier, hey, gut versus maybe some technicals, right? I think of personality assessments. I think of all these different things that can go into staffing and hiring. How do you view staffing, and what would you say to people, business leaders maybe watching this right now, about the industry itself and best practices when it comes to trying to judge? Is it my gut feeling? Is it more analytical? I'm sure it varies by position, but talk about it on a large scale, if you will.
Well, listen, if you put it in that context, what I would tell you, what I would say to anybody watching this and thinking, hey, we need help hiring,
Hmm.
and we're going to engage a third party. Um, the mistake that I see happening so frequently is looking at it as a commodity and
Mm.
and as a transaction and a budget line item. Now, all of those things are there, but when you hire an accountant, you're not asking them to file your taxes and go away,
Hmm.
right? You want their insight and their expertise to guide your financial steps. Same thing with hiring. If you're going to bring somebody in to supplement, the point isn't to get resumes in as fast as you can, place somebody as cheap as you can, and get out.
Yeah.
The point is to open your arms, say, okay, let's get this right, and let's evaluate why we're here, what we really believe we need, and then let us go out and identify who those people are, bring feedback. So we're doing that in a constant loop, right?
Hmm.
Okay, hey, we've talked to 18 candidates. Here's where we're at. Here's some of the tweaks we might need to make to get you the right person.
Hmm.
Be open and available for the conversations, be open and available for the feedback, and partner to get to the right piece. Uh, and we see this with other industries too. It's not just staffing, but when you look at something really transactional, oftentimes the results you get are going to be very
Yeah,
transactional.
for sure. For sure. I
So,
love that.
from my standpoint with that, if you put it in that context, that would be my biggest advice: is slow down for a second,
Hmm.
view the partnership for what it is, and make sure that you're hiring a company who shares that value that you can stand to work with.
Yeah.
Um, we see a lot where people will go into a new account and they have 6 vendors um, for hiring. And my first question is, well, when's the last time you saw a resume from them?
Hmm.
And oftentimes they feel like they have 6 vendors working on something, but they haven't got a resume from 4 of them
Yeah.
in 8 months.
Yeah.
So we're not partners anymore, right? You're sending racks, they're not working them for whatever reason. Narrow that down. It's okay to have more than one. I'm not selfish,
Hmm.
but be true
Yeah.
partners.
Last one for you. When we talk about the staffing industry, biggest trend, biggest thing you see moving into the future with the industry right now?
So what I would say, especially if we're localized here in Southeast Michigan, we're heavy automotive
Yep.
manufacturing. I would say as wild as it sounds, 6 years after COVID, we're finally seeing that kind of fully bleed through the system and flush out.
Okay.
And so companies were really overhiring. It was very, very competitive. They were overhiring for a long period of time. We've seen some layoffs and things like that in the news, but really what happened was they just let people go without replacement, right? And now we seem to be at this point where staffs got reduced heavily and quote activity is picking up. So people are starting to get to the point where they go, "Oh, shoot, we cut too far."
Mm.
And so wages have gone up. Minimum wage went up this year in
Yep.
Michigan. A lot of people don't factor that in. I think if you haven't, please take a look at your pay bands
Hmm.
and how far above minimum wage are you in
Sure.
certain positions. But so to be concise, what I've seen is an overhiring trend led to overcuts.
Yeah.
And we're now in a position where it's going to start to get competitive to bring in skilled employees. And I'd be on the early curve of that if you want to be budget conscious, because we'll get back into a wage war. But demands are up even despite the overcutting. So we have a lot of customers who are very surprised when we tell them what market rates are for certain positions, because they're different than they were a few years ago.
It's great advice. I love it, and good to have you in and appreciate it. You're a natural on these type. I mean, you must have done a ton of them before.
Yeah, first one,
But
first
isn't it
podcast
good?
ever.
But I tell people all the time that we work with too. Even when you sit down and just talk, and you can get, especially nowadays, so many short clips out of what we just did. Um, don't be nervous. It's just easier said than done. But I can tell you're talking about stuff you talk about every day. You're talking about your passion. You're talking about your livelihood. You're talking about your business that you know better than everyone's. Just talk.
Well,
But good stuff.
it's fun. I think people should not be nervous. It was a good time. I really appreciate it.
We'll do more. Nick,
All right.
appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Mike.